You did a previous board and train. However, he's very vocal, or he was vocalizing in response to the e-collar. And he has leash reactivity towards dogs and humans.
Not really dogs. He just wants to play with them.
Okay.
So he runs up to them and gets really excited and just wants to play with them. I've heard once where he nipped at a dog, but he went to daycare like daily at that point. So, but it's mostly with new people, and it's not as bad like us coming into groomers or into other places he doesn't know.
Okay.
It's more at home or just when we're on walks.
I see.
I don't know why. I mean, he did okay with all the people walking by, but if somebody were to just reach out to him, he would
start barking.
Freak out.
Does it come across as like a defensive aggressive, or just comes across as in like he's startled?
He's very scared of everything, kind of. Like when you moved the camera, he's scared of that. And I think when people walk by, it could be a little of that, like something big coming by him. But I think it's a little bit of a protection thing. He's scared. So if you get like close to him, I think he's just scared.
Sure.
I don't think he's just like, I just want to bite you because I'm mean and want to bite you.
Okay. How old is he?
2 years, 4 months.
Okay. How long has he had this behavior for?
I can kind of pinpoint it to. When did my fiance move? We lived in Dallas. He moved away, and I followed him 9 months later. But it was right after he moved to Chicago, and I stayed in Dallas, which was
okay.
a year and a half ago, maybe.
So he's 2 years and 6 months now. You said.
2 years, 4 months.
2 years, 4 months, and you said this happened like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I think so.
So around a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are in Dallas. I'm sure you said your fiance.
Yeah.
Moves here. You stay back in Dallas.
Yeah.
And then.
When the movers came, he was very upset.
Sure.
By them coming in and moving big items and things, and that was very scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like I remember it after that, him being very scared of people.
Okay. So prior to that, with people coming into the home, he was fine?
Yeah. Yeah.
How would he greet them? Just excited, jumping, barking, barking? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not barking as much, but a little bit. I mean, we didn't have tons of people coming to our house. We don't have lots of people coming to our house.
Regularly?
In general, yeah.
Yeah, okay. At what time did you do the boarding train?
It was 9 months or so after he left, my fiance, after he moved. So that was probably May of last year.
Okay.
What month are we in now? April?
You're in April.
Probably a year ago.
A year ago. Was it because of the behaviors?
Yeah. We tried a trainer that came in and just did work with us one-on-one. And I can't remember why we didn't continue. But then when we knew we were moving and he had started getting a little aggressive, we thought we'd try and board and train. And they did the e-collar. We tried to keep going with it, but he just would yelp every time we pressed it.
Okay.
Like if he was excited at home, he wouldn't as much yelp, I guess. I'm trying to think, but it was like when we were out and he was doing something, we pressed it, he would just yelp, and then I would just be like freaked, like it was.
Was it a circle remote?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How long was the boarding train for?
It was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
A week or 2 weeks now, I can't remember.
Do you know if they did prong collar into e-collar, or did they just do straight e-collar?
The e-collar, but it had to have those prongs because he's so fuzzy.
Yeah, the special probes.
But it was just with the regular leash.
Okay.
It just had the 2 probes that.
I gotcha. Do you know the dog training company you used?
I could look at it. It was a place in Dallas.
Okay, because there's a couple of franchise dog training. There's 2 in particular. One is off-leash canine training, and the other one is sit, mean, sit.
It was off leash.
Off-leash? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else?
He just jumps up a lot. So once he gets to know you and he's happy around you, then he just, we can't get him to stop jumping up. Like if I have people staying,
Sure.
the next morning, he'll see them again after the nighttime and he'll be excited. Like, oh, you're still here. He'll run up and just like jump, and it's all excited jumping. But
Yeah, he could. I've had there was a dog that I had worked with that had given the boyfriend a concussion
yeah.
because he had the boyfriend came over, dog was excited and went to bend down and headbutted each other and knocked him out and got a concussion.
Yeah, he can jump pretty high too. So if I don't even bend over, he can get up
To your face.
I mean, I'm short, but
That's still pretty high.
my fiance is about 6 foot, so he can reach his nose too.
Oh wow, yeah, it's up there.
He can really jump. So
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, those are the big things.
How'd you hear about us?
Friend of a friend. I think her dog comes here. I don't know the dog's name because it's funny.
Okay. Are you in the area? Are you like West Loopish, or are you?
We're in Wicker Park, but we're moving to Bucktown.
Okay, yeah.
And we had gone to Hope Stars, and we've stopped going there.
Okay. How do you do there?
As far as I know, he did well. He just kept getting sick there, so we had to stop.
Okay.
But as far as I know, he did well.
Anything else?
I don't know.
Okay. So before booking this and all that stuff, and I know you're from a friend of a friend. Did you research how we train dogs?
I think a little, but a refresher would be nice.
Okay. So I also do e-collar.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna explain everything because I have a good idea what's going on. It's possible that your dog is just super sensitive, but I think chances are he just wasn't conditioned correctly. Okay. Which is the most common thing that I come across with dogs that are trained by other e-collar trainers is they don't condition them correctly. That's why I brought up Sit, Mean, Sit and Off Leash Canine because they're fairly popular because they're franchises. And I've trained lots of their dogs. Okay. And those dogs have had the same responses because of how they condition the collar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think ours was off leash.
Okay. And I think off leash, like if you look at your remote, I think they even sell their collars have a custom plate on it where it'll actually even say their company name. Same thing with Sit, Mean, Sit. They have company names on the collars, so that's usually a big giveaway. So to give you an example, I had a client who did a 2-week board and train. I believe it was at Sit, Mean, Sit. And when I met with them at the park, the dog was very anxious, was salivating, shaking a lot. And they had done the boarding train about a year prior. And when I was talking to them, I was like, how long was it? They're like, it was a year ago. And this is why we don't use the collar, because he's like this every time the collar is on. And I go, okay, well, this tells me the dog wasn't conditioned correctly because it's seemingly random to the dog. They don't understand when it's going to turn on and when it's going to turn off. It just turns on, right? So the dog can't interpret that.
Yeah.
That's what creates the stress and the anxiety. So they ended up signing up for a short 3-class program because all they cared about was leash walking because the dog was leash reactive. And they had already done a 2-week boarding train, so I was like, that's pretty much all you'll need. We did the first class. I told them, take 2 weeks to practice and then come back. And when they came back, the dog was completely calm. Okay? And they were surprised, and I said, it's because you already had a year of exposure. The dog already had a year of exposure, but it was incorrect. So once I fixed the communication and the dog understood how the system worked, the dog now calmed down.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then we went on to do the rest of the training, the dog's fine.
Is that the same as him like yelping when it goes off?
Yes.
Because the guy, I asked him, the guy that did his training, and he said he might be just
Sensitive?
getting over, like almost acting. He said
Yes.
he was like act like, oh, like stop, mom, like, please stop, like
Yeah. So there's other potentials. So that's the first one.
Yeah.
And that's the most common one that I get is that dogs aren't conditioned correctly. Okay. The second one would be the system itself. So that circle remote is e-collar technologies. Okay, it's a good brand. I used to use them like 12, 14 years ago when I first started my career, but I stopped because I had a handful of cases that were all aggression cases that were getting worse. Okay, and the
Yeah.
only thing that I could look at and go like, because I'm having other cases that are successful, other cases that are not,
Yeah.
was the system itself. So I swapped the system out and I use Dogtra now, and then I swapped all those dogs out onto Dogtra, and all those dogs started making progress because how the stim is delivered. The e-collar technology stim is a sharper feeling, whereas Dogtra is duller.
Yeah.
Okay, when you feel them side by side, you can feel the comparison. They're the same technology, but how they feel and how they're delivered is different. Okay, so that's another possibility, is that it's the system itself. Okay, the last possibility, and this is the one that is more uncommon, is your dog's either being dramatic and has learned, if I yelp, you'll use the button less, because that does happen.
Yeah.
But in almost 15 years of training dogs, I've had maybe a handful of dogs that do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he was saying that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Although he didn't see it. This is when we'd already moved to Chicago, and I asked him.
Sure.
He didn't see it happening. When I was
The other thing could be, and this still falls into that third category, is he's clearly under stress right now. He is very overstimulated. You see how he's unable to relax. He keeps looking all over the place, right? And he's starting to get anxious as well. It's possible that all that, because he's already what we call over threshold.
Yeah.
He's already like this. So when you add a little bit more stress, e-collar is a stressor, the dog starts to vocalize, right? But that's why the conditioning is important, because when he's conditioned correctly, he shouldn't be like this. He should be calmer. So if he's calmer, it takes more to put him at threshold that we would see the vocalization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know.
So,
Yeah, he's always like this in public places.
Yeah.
He's very alert,
yeah.
stressed.
Part of that can be because of breed. I've trained quite a few Aussies in my career. The other thing can be genetics. Okay, this isn't anything that you necessarily did wrong. It's just genetically he's kind of wired that way. We can make progress, of course, but I cannot change his genetics. There's going to be a plateau somewhere, right? Let me think here. There's one more thing I was going to point out. The move thing. It is potential. So that the move and the year mark are related, but it could also be just a dog's natural growth process. So dogs have 3 pivotal changes in their life: 6 months, a year, 2 years. 6 months, think of it as terrible two's brain, teenager body. A year is teenager brain, adult body. 2 years is adult dog. Okay? What can happen is sometimes if something very stressful happens, like I've had clients who their puppies are very social, they get attacked by a dog at a dog park around 6 months, and like a switch, the next day the puppy is now dog aggressive because it happened at a very pivotal time frame, right? So it's possible the move and the fact that he was at the ear mark are related, but also typically dogs begin to display territorial behavior at around a year. Okay, which is barking when people enter.
Well, and he didn't move. It was his dad, I guess.
But the
yeah,
movers.
the movers coming in. Yeah.
Yes.
I know. Looking back, I wish we had him away from the house. And ever since then, if we have anybody coming in, like plumber, electrician, we make sure he's not in the house. Like one of us will take him on a walk or something, because somebody comes in, he'll, kind of like the movers coming in, and
Yep.
freaks him out.
Yeah. It's fairly common for dogs just because of territorial instinct.
Yeah.
Territorial doesn't mean they're going to be aggressive. It just means they're alerting you something's going on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So it can be any of those things. It doesn't matter when it comes to the solution, whether it's because of the move, if it's because of he's a year old, he's a teenager, or was a year old teenager, stress, like all that stuff. It doesn't matter. And when it comes to addressing the issues, like pretty much the same. Okay. It just for the client's understanding.
Yeah.
Because people like to kind of know like what's going on, so they understand the
Try
dog
to
better.
figure out
Yeah.
what they're thinking. Yeah.
Hey, Corey. Will you have Thea call the mechanic? I think the van is ready. Okay. Yeah. So, and then also, so I see overstimulation, I see anxiety most likely because of overstimulation, and that right there would be also nervous dog. Okay. So nervousness, like you see how he's starting to settle, but he's still under stress. Nervousness will relax, but then at some point, if there's a change in the environment, for example, my brother coming down that hallway, right? But if nothing happens, he's fine. If I get up and then get too close, potential trigger because of the sudden change in the interaction. Whereas right now I'm minding my business, I'm over here giving you guys about 10 feet of space. Okay. So question on any of the stuff so far? So when it comes to addressing this, all our dogs over 6 months are trained on a remote collar. We don't do exceptions simply because it's the best training tool. I've come across lots of clients like this where like I said, I'm positive that he was just conditioned incorrectly. Okay. But the reason is remote collar has the highest ceiling in terms of limitations. So food-based only has a very low ceiling. We use it for puppies under 6 months. It's a great tool for puppies. But once 6 months happens, that's when dogs tend to become more involved with their environment, and then food goes out the window. Okay. The next tool would be like a prong collar, which is that spiky looking collar. You may have seen it before. They're very effective tools. The only issue is they take quite a bit more technical skill. Okay. Since I deal with a lot of leash reactivity or dog aggressive or just aggressive dogs in general, people tend to lock up a lot because of the assumption of my dog's going to be reactive or whatever. So they're always stressed out and like kind of holding the leash tight.
Yeah.
Which feeds into the reactivity. So if we're using a prong collar, part of the use of a prong collar is you have to relax it so that the dog understands what's going on. Okay. So, and there's more technical skill. And with dogs like Aussies, German Shepherds, Samoyeds and stuff, a lot of times their fur is so thick that the prong collar doesn't even do much as it is.
Yeah, he's really thick.
So remote collar is always my go-to tool. Right off the bat, we get off-leash control. I work with a lot of aggressive behaviors, so it allows us to very efficiently and effectively address aggression, and it's very intuitive once you understand it correctly. Okay. In the rare cases where we get dogs that are vocalizing because they're too sensitive, there's things that we can do to help mitigate that. One is pairing training with food. I use food very rarely for adult dogs, but like we actually have one here for a board and train. We trained the owner's first dog. The dog passed. They got a second dog. So he started training the dog on his own. And then he brought the dog for a board and train. And the moment I started working with the dog, I already knew what he was doing because of how the dog was responding. Okay. She was very flighty. She was very again, didn't know what to do. So then I emailed them and I said, hey, have you started training this dog on your own? And he said, yes. Why? I'm like, because she's very flighty and she's very fearful. And I can tell because he was doing it incorrectly. Right. So I'm cleaning up everything, but we're pairing food with her training because I have to fix what he did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but she's doing great now with the food and everything. Again, it's just the communication had to be cleared up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first trainer we had was just food. Food for like treats, training, treats. And once he did start getting nervous, we realized that was probably not going to be enough.
Yes.
The treats for training. So that's when we got the guy, the board and train.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I think he was actually there for a month.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I need to look back.
Sure.
It was a long time, and I remember we thought it would be helpful as well since we were. I never know too, like telling him no.
No. So what you can do here, because he's not on a flat collar, right? He's just in his harness.
Yeah, he's in the harness.
Is you're gonna pull up on your harness and you're gonna push down on his butt, but you're not gonna say anything and you're not gonna praise him.
Yeah, he's got it hooked in the front.
That's fine. You're just gonna pull up and then push down on the hindquarters. Okay. Now every time he gets up, this is gonna get annoying. You're gonna repeat that process. You're not gonna praise him. You're not gonna tell him sit. You're just gonna do what you did. Okay. Yep. Up on your leash, down on the butt. There you go. Okay. Up on your leash, and you can twirl him if needed, down on the butt. Good. Okay. So most trainers and people tend to think of prong collars and e-collars as punishers. Okay.
Most people? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Most people, most trainers, you look at the tool and you go, oh, you must just punish the dog with that, right?
Yeah.
So up on your leash, down on the butt. So when I talk about incorrect conditioning, what that looks like is the dog can be they'll shape the behaviors with food, right? Sit, down, place, right? All with food.
Yeah.
It's praise, a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
And then after about a week or so, they go, you've had enough training up on your leash, down on the butt. We're going to put an e-collar on you. Yep, up on your leash, down on the butt. Yep. Good. We're going to punish you when you break the command or you don't listen. So the issue is you got this one side of the rainbow, which is all positivity. And then it's, if you don't do it, bam, right? And there's no bridge. And the bridge is what connects the things together.
Yeah.
The dog cannot process, this thing on my neck is happening because I said sit, you said sit and I ignored you. The dog doesn't connect that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we do is we train with what's called pressure work. Okay. We start low, we work our way up until I find a number that's low enough that your dog can tolerate, but that's high enough that your dog is a little bit annoyed. Okay, up on your leash, down on the butt. And we shape everything using the pressure. So right now, you're technically using pressure. Okay, you're pulling up on the leash, you're pressing down on the butt, right? You're using what we call leash pressure and physical pressure. But the moment he gives you what you want, what are you doing?
Right now?
Yes. The moment you pull up and press down and he sits, what are you doing in response? Nothing. You're releasing. So he's going, okay, every time I get up, this happens, but the moment I put my butt down, mom relaxes. You see that?
Yeah.
That's pressure, right? You're putting him under pressure, physical pressure, to get this sitting position. Once he gives it to you, you relax. It's the same thing with e-collar. We shape the behaviors using pressure at a low level, and then when the dog sits, it disappears. Okay, up on your leash, down on the butt. Yep, there we go. And we keep repeating that, and eventually the dog goes, oh, when I feel this, if I do this in response, it'll turn off. So now the dog, up on your leash, down on the butt, starts to get an understanding of why it's happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then later on, if we have to increase the level because of the stimulation, or if the dog's overstimulated or anxious or defensive or whatever, the dog can compute, this is happening because of, I need to do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas most, it's just, oh, I told you to do it, you didn't do it, blast. And that's why dogs tend to be on edge, because they don't understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
So if you go outside, you drive,
Yes.
let's say you find a ticket on your car, right? Pick up the ticket and you look at it and there is no reason why. Okay. The next day you go out, you find another ticket on your car. You look, there's no reason why.
Yeah.
You're gonna start getting pissed off.
Change anything you
Exactly.
do. Yeah.
You need to understand, right? When I gamble a yellow and get a red light ticket because I cut it too close, I go, damn it. I don't like it, but I know I shouldn't have gambled that yellow light. Does that make sense? So the understanding of why the correction is happening is necessary. And once they understand it, stress levels start to dip. But if they don't, stress levels, yep, up on your leash, down on the butt, will go up and then stay up. So that's what happened with that example I gave earlier. They did a 2-week board and train, and a year later, he was still shaking and salivating with big old eyes because he didn't know when it was going to turn on. He was just like, I know it's going to turn on, but I don't know why and when.
Yeah. He's
Questions?
afraid of the little
Yes.
bit.
We want the dog to understand the collar as a line of communication.
Yeah.
Okay? So dogs are physical creatures. They nip and bite each other. Okay? They do it as a form of play. They do it as a form of correction. If let's say we have a puppy and the puppy is being annoying, he might nip the puppy to say, don't be annoying. That's not aggression. That's a correction.
Yeah.
Dogs use, like they'll nibble on each other, or they'll even nibble on their owners as a sign of affection, right? They're very mouth-based creatures. So I like to describe the e-collar as like a bite on the button. When it's conditioned correctly, they kind of perceive it like a bite. So I can disagree with things I don't want, but then I can also use it to reinforce things that I do want.
Yeah.
Okay. The prong collar, the spiky looking one, that's meant to mimic a dog bite. That's why it looks the way it looks.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I never knew what those were for. They just looked
Menacing?
aggressive. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, they just looked scary.
Yes. Like a lot of people, they look at it and they go, it's like a medieval torture device. And I go, it's meant to mimic a dog bite. Okay. So once you understand these things for what they are, then it goes, oh, okay, this all starts to how'd you say, add up. But that's why even with dog trainers, they see these tools, yep, up on your leash, down on the butt, and it's the same concept. They perceive it as punishers, okay? But when conditioned correctly, it's really just a line of communication. So, yep, push away.
What's happening?
This here, it's healed up now. It's wild. It's been like 4 years, but this is a dog bite. Okay, so it's 10 stitches.
He's like, let me add to it.
It was a dog that didn't want to go in a kennel.
Yeah.
It was an aggressive dog. It's the first time he bit anybody. It's the last time he's bit anybody. I trained him. This was November of 2019. And then he still comes to daycare. He still comes to board. Never had an issue. What happened was, it was a Great Dane. I was trying to see if he'd fit in the kennel. He had never been put in a kennel before, so he went under stress. He freaked out. He thought he was in danger because he doesn't know, right? And then he looked up and bit my hand in order to release because I was trying to load him in. Okay, so I don't take it personally. And I told the owners, they're like, oh my God, he's not aggressive. I'm like, he's not aggressive. He just freaked out.
He was saying, let go.
Yeah, like, I don't want to go in there. But the only thing he has to communicate that, aside from a growl or a bark, is a bite. Okay, so when dogs are labeled as aggressive, like I get dogs that have bitten people, I take all the information and I go, oh, the dog bit the person because, he was being territorial over the home. It's not good that they bit the person, but if he had bitten a bad person, like a burglar or somebody trying to harm you, you'd be saying something exactly, right? The dog doesn't calculate, oh, your friend, your foe. Yes. Everybody that's not the immediate family a lot of times is seen as an outsider. They don't trust.
And he has, I don't know if he's broken skin on anyone, but there was somebody at an old daycare, the first one he ever went to, that I didn't realize this lady was new.
Mm-hmm. Good job. Yep.
I didn't realize this lady was new, and her and somebody else was outside smoking a cigarette. I could tell they worked there.
Mm-hmm.
But she came up to him, like literally arms waving, saying,
Oh.
"Hi, buddy," and just kept walking. I really thought that he knew her and she knew him because of the way she was acting. And with people he knows, he doesn't do that. But yeah, he like nipped her arm.
In that moment?
Yeah,
Okay.
Because she kept coming closer and closer. He didn't go towards her to bite her, but as soon as she got close enough, yeah, he bit her.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking, I was like, I hope this means, or doesn't mean he's aggressive, because that's scary. To think of anyone coming to the house and him possibly biting them. But yeah, she was definitely like,
Yeah, and nervous dogs don't like big energy.
yeah.
So from his perspective, you're standing with him, right? Think of yourself as a little territory here, okay, you and your dog. And the woman's, she's shouting or whatever, but now you're out of the context of the daycare, right? You're outside.
We're out
Is that correct?
of it,
Yeah. So now, because when you go into a setting like this, dogs tend to go in a kind of a communal mindset. It's public space, so to speak, right? But once you're out and it's just you and him, you yourself are like a little territory.
Yeah.
So if somebody gets too close and they're shouting, even though it's like, hey, to him it's big boisterous energy, I could see him becoming protective of like, hey, keep away, even if he met the person, because you're outside of that context. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you woke up in the middle of the night and go to the kitchen and you see your best friend standing in the living room and you're like, how did you get here? Right? That's going to be strange because you're like, who let you in and why are you here in my house? Despite the fact that you're best friends.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like even though you're best friends, there's still points where it'd be weird
Yeah.
to see them present. Make
Yeah.
sense? Same thing for the dog, right?
Yeah.
So even though he met the lady inside the daycare, maybe they were fine, they were coexisting, the moment you pull out of that context, he goes, now we're outside, right? And this I'm not comfortable with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So once you start to understand dog for dog, things start to make a lot more sense. It's super, super rare that a dog is aggressive for the sake of being aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay, dogs are aggressive or defensive for a reason. Okay, so even if somebody walked in and there was a friend into your home and he bit them on the back of the leg or whatever, right? I go, that's territorial behavior. right? He's not going out of his way to bite people.
Yeah.
He's just going, I don't know who you are. I've only met you once or twice outside the home. Now you're coming in the home. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah.
I think you're a threat. Boom. Okay. Question on any of that stuff?
I did, but I forgot it. Maybe I'll think of it.
If you remember, just let me know. So what's your goal or intention for the training now?
Well, I mean, essentially just to have him not growl or bark at new people. And to hopefully get him to not jump up on people that come into our house.
Okay.
Because like he won't jump up on them if he's initially, confused on who they are, they're brand new and they're walking into our house, he'll bark at them. And once he settles and realizes he likes them, he won't leave their side. Then he wants to be around them a lot. If they were to go to the bathroom maybe and come back out and he saw them leave but come back, he's all excited, like, yay, you're back.
Yep.
And he'll jump on them. And that's kind of what, I don't want that to keep happening.
Sure.
So, the jumping up is a big one. And he even does it to us sometimes when we come home.
Sure.
Worse for my fiance because he'll let him. And I wish that he wouldn't let him jump up on him so much.
Sure.
But I think because he's gotten used to doing that. So a lot of that jumping up. We try to train him to jump up only when we by saying
Up or something.
Up,
Yeah.
and, like touching our legs or our chest.
Mm-hmm.
And he will. He knows what that means, and he knows. Okay, yeah, I get to put my paws up, but I don't know. It's kind of blurred the lines, and now he just thinks he can jump up.
Sure.
So
Okay.
working on that and just, I don't know what goals I should have too though, because what's possible. Oh, that was my question. Since he's 2 and 4 months, like what's actually feasible on what we can do with this?
Oh, you can train a dog at any age.
Okay.
The can't train a dog new tricks, whatever, old dog new tricks is a myth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
saying, yeah.
It's kind of like the lockjaw thing with pits, where they'll say that the jaws would lock and you can't. Remember? So up on your leash. Yep, up. So up and then move towards your left there. Yep, pull. Yep, pull. Yep, like, yeah, move him. And now you're gonna spin him and just push his butt down.
Spin him.
There you go, like that. Very good. Okay. Yeah, there was a saying when I was growing up, like pit bulls have a jaw that locks, and then once they bite, you can't release them. It's a myth. So, in terms of like what's feasible, sky's the limit. Okay.
And he loves training. He loves using his mind. That's his breed. So we've been able to do a lot of training just because he likes it. Like he loves his crate at home. We did such a good job on that he goes in there just to relax sometimes. So I know that I just didn't know if maybe it would be possible to get rid of some like this sensitivity and aggression completely, or if this is just kind of always going to be present. We have to learn how to manage it.
So, we cannot change genetics, right?
That part,
But what we can disagree with things and teach like this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. Okay. The reactivity and stuff is typically a symptom of a problem.
yeah.
Okay. So looking at your dog right now, what is the problem?
With him now,
Mhm.
just that he's anxious and
Yeah.
he can't relax.
He's constantly on edge.
Yeah.
So when you add in a little bit more stress, like a weird sound outside, right? But it's the symptom of this. Once we address this, the symptoms go away.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Now, it's not to say he's never going to bark. He's going to bark. Like, I run a quiet kennel. We have 50 dogs today. If you hear a huge amount of barking, that's our neighbor. So the city of Chicago has canine handlers that go onto the CTA for security reasons. All those dogs go next door. And they're renting our back space for another 2 weeks. So any big barking you're hearing, is them. Otherwise, my kennel is quiet. When you first came, there was one dog that was barking a little bit, so it does happen.
Yeah.
But we don't have 50 dogs barking, right? You probably just heard like a couple of dogs barking over there, right?
Yeah, over there I did when we were waiting.
Yes. So it's going to happen, right? Dogs are going to bark. We just don't have 50 dogs barking all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? Your dog's going to bark. He's just not going to be barking for every little thing all the time, right? It's going to be much more subdued, and you will also have the ability to stop it when you don't want it anymore,
Yeah.
which is the big thing, right? Is being able to just stop it. So like right now, with what you have, so just as FYI, harnesses are not good for dogs with reactivity, okay? Or stress, like anxiety, overstimulation.
Yeah, I hear so many different things that I just,
Yes.
like
I know.
everybody, every trainer seems to have a different opinion.
Yes.
It's frustrating.
Yes. So.
And there was one that he had that was around the neck,
Uh-huh.
and he's so fluffy, it slipped right off of him once.
Sure. So, if you move forward to training, it's not a big deal. We're going to work past all this stuff. But just so you understand why, have you ever heard of opposition reflex? Opposition reflex is a fancy word that means when a dog feels pressure, they want to go against it. Okay, so if you pull back, he pulls forward. You pull left, he pulls right. You pull right, he pulls left, right? Harnesses are typically on the back. So when you're pulling on the leash, if the dog's power is here, right?
Yeah, that's why we've started using it.
The front clip.
Because he's pulled a lot less with it.
Yes. So the reason why the front clip, and these style harnesses are typically called no pull harnesses, which is an oxymoron because harnesses are meant for pulling. Yeah. Harnesses are meant for pulling. Huskies were harnesses to pull sleds, horses were harnesses to pull carriages, right? What happens is with the clip on the front, when the dog pulls, it moves the shoulders, it deviates the pressure from being on the center of the chest to the side. And that's what gives you a little bit more management, but ultimately it's still, it exacerbates the stress or tension that your dog feels because of that negative pressure. So I get a lot of clients, they get puppies. They put their puppy on a harness because they don't want them choking themselves or whatever. The puppy wants to say hi to everybody and everything, so it's constantly pulling, and the owners are constantly pulling the puppy away. So now the puppy goes from friendly to frustrated because it can't get to what it wants, and it keeps getting what we call negative tension because it's being pulled away, and it causes that frustration because it can't get to what it wants to. And over time, that frustration becomes aggression or agitation. Okay, we were many years ago, I used to train dogs to be aggressive on command, okay, like protection training. We use harnesses. We put a harness on a German Shepherd. I'm holding the German Shepherd like this with the leash. There's another trainer, an antagonizer, being suspicious to start pulling out the defense drive from the dog. And if the dog starts to lunge, guess what I do? I pull back because I want to create that frustration of I can't get to the target. And eventually that frustration becomes barking, that barking becomes growling, that growling becomes a lunge and a bite. And then I release. Yeah. Because that's what I want. You see that? Yeah. So, but with what you know and what you hear and everything, like it's okay. I know it can be frustrating. Like Google is a rabbit hole, obviously. Yeah. And the most common thing that you're going to come across is typically positive reinforcement or these kinds of tools because it's the most socially acceptable. Does that make sense? Like it makes people feel good that they could fix their dog's problems with positive reinforcement, affection, love, treats. Yeah. But that's not the reality of things, okay? So you see how he's starting to calm down now?
Yeah,
right?
I assume it's because he's just tired.
Do you know why he's calming down?
No, I guess not.
Because you started giving him direction. What were you telling him to do?
Sit and I relax.
You were telling him to relax by making him sit. And eventually you kept doing it and the brain goes, well, I can't do what I want to do, so I'm going to just lay down, right? Now, he's still stimulated because that's who he is. Yeah, right? But earlier, remember how he was just all over the place, jumping on the chair, coming over here, going over there, coming up to you, back again, right? Then he'd sit for 2 minutes and he'd get up and he'd do it again because there's no direction, okay? And you were using pressure. That's why I said, don't tell him sit, don't praise him, just keep repeating. I said, it's gonna be annoying, but eventually you would create this, right? But if there's a sudden change, so this is nervous dog, right? Because everything was fine until he sees what's going on back there. Okay, so going to shorten your leash a little bit, pull up, Press down on the butt. Yep. Yep, push, push, push. Push, push, push. You got it. Almost. More up. There you go. Good. Now relax a little bit. Good. Good. Okay. Now here, with what you have, this is the best you're gonna get. Because we don't have anything to disagree. Right? We would need to bite him to say, hey, I disagree with that behavior. But you see how he's just more toned down? And the sniff here is social behavior. It's what we call curiosity.
Yeah.
I would want to see that. Okay?
You do want to see that?
I want to see sniffing. When you see staring, growling, just pure tension, that's antisocial behavior.
Oh God, no, he loves other dogs.
Yeah.
And I know that, I assume too, if you have a dog and then get a second one, maybe the older dog teaches the little one a bit more, and he's an only dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he probably needs more of, more social interaction with other dogs.
Nope.
Because he likes to play
He
with
just
others.
needs rules.
Well, I guess I mean, I want him to be able to play with other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I don't know, I think he doesn't have much else to do at home. He's not, herding cattle like he should be. So a lot of times when he's with other dogs, it stimulates him, and then he can really relax at night.
Would you be interested in herding cattle with him?
I've seen that people do that.
Mm-hmm. There's a place here just across, right at the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. It's like maybe 2 hours away, if that.
Yeah.
I used to, my stepdad has he used to have 5 border collies that he did competitive sheep herding with.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go, lady's name is Shannon Wolf. I'm sure if you Googled her, she'd probably pop up.
Okay.
And I have a client right now that one of their dogs is a herding breed, one that I've not seen before. And they go with their dog like once a week to go herd sheep. And it's nothing like spectacular, but it's to meet the dog's need.
Yeah.
So throughout my career, there's been about a handful of times, because most people, when they get their dogs, they get family pet. But every now and then, you go to a breeder that has Australian Shepherds, and they breed for family pet. So they don't want the herding instinct. But every now and then, it's like that kind of like, you have, black hair, black hair, black hair, and all of a sudden this kid's born with blonde hair because great-great-great-grandma or whoever.
That's literally me. Nobody in my family has red hair.
Yeah,
Just came out of nowhere.
it can happen, where a dog that's family pet bred has the instinct.
I'm not even sure if that's what, I'm assuming that's what this breeder was doing, because it didn't say you had to.
Yeah, if he had instinct, purposefully, right, they would make sure that you were going to work the dog, because they will go crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. He may or may not have it. It's kind of like, if you'd like to have him have that outlet, there's an option that's fairly nearby in here in Wisconsin.
I don't know if he even maybe get nervous around sheep or cattle. I don't know.
You'd be surprised when they see, like with dogs with instinct, when they see it,
Yeah.
it just comes out. It's in their blood. Okay. But the lady's name's Shannon Wolf, and if you forget, just email us and I'll send you the information. But that won't help this.
Right.
These are two separate things. That's more of like you showing your love for him, like by letting him have that outlet if it's something he enjoys. All the other stuff is really human component. The human thinking the dog needs socialization or whatever, right? If you want to, and he likes it, then go for it. I can help you with that stuff if needed, okay? But I get clients that they really put a lot of weight on their dog needing that stuff, and I'll tell them, because you're trying so hard to cater for the dog, that's part of the reason why the dog has issues, because it's usually accompanied by babying, too much affection, and that stuff starts to create behavioral issues. Okay.
Yeah.
I run a quiet kennel here, and it's not because I pet every single dog and I talk to them in high-pitched voices and stuff like that and give them treats all the time. It's the complete opposite. We give them structure. We completely ignore them. We're here to give them structure, discipline if they act out, right? Consequence if they bark when they're not supposed to bark. And that's why I run a quiet kennel. It has nothing to do with training.
So the ways, I guess, I do want to make sure that, I mean, I know I've seen some through all of my looking at different trainers, I've seen some that have some weird ways, like, I forget what it's called, like throwing some kind of lumped up thing at the dog.
Oh, bonker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like that, and I don't know if I like any sort of hitting of the dog. I just didn't know if there's anything like that that y'all do here.
If necessary.
Like, so then what happens? So if they, what makes it necessary?
So most of the dogs here are already trained by us, so we actually just use their collar.
Yeah.
99% of the time.
That should be the best way.
Right. Are you familiar with Cesar Milan?
Yeah.
The dog whisperer?
Yeah.
That's most of the time what we use is hand corrections because they're meant to mimic a dog bite. Okay. Now, I can tell you right now, let's say he has barking in the home, like when people pass or when dogs pass or whatever, and he barks out the window. Okay. You can use an e-collar to correct that behavior. The problem is when you remove the e-collar, he's going to do it again. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where the bonker comes into play because there has to be a consequence for the behavior you don't want. Okay. Now I tell my clients, I go, it's your house, your rules. If you don't want to do the bonker, don't do the bonker. But then your dog's going to bark in the house and not going to stop unless they have the collar on. And so I actually, this past weekend, I did it in home. The dog has made great progress. It was a feral dog. They rescued it at 4 months from Mexico. Used to bark at every fucking thing. Okay, super reactive. We cleared all that stuff up. The owner is struggling in the home because they live on a busy kind of intersection of Elston and this kind of neighborhood street that there's people walking their dogs and stuff, so they constant traffic. So the dog is incessantly barking all day.
Yeah.
When he's got the collar on, he's as quiet as can be. When he's got the collar off, he knows, he barks, right? So I was talking to them, and she's like, yeah, this collar's on like almost 24/7, and I don't like it. And I go, I agree, your dog should move past the collar within the home. And I said, this is where the bonker comes into play. Because I sent the bonker video like 2 to 3 months ago. And I said it in an email, this is what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And she's had a really hard time with it because she carries guilt about his past. Plus, she already had guilt with the discipline approach anyways. So that's the human component, right? Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm like, how much progress has your dog made with e-collar? She's like, oh my God, tremendous. This is like great. I go, awesome. So why would I tell you to use something if it's going to hurt your dog, whatever? I only tell you to use what I know works, okay? Because I've already done the stuff that doesn't work.
It just seems so funny to be throwing something at your dog.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's like, a rolled up towel.
You're just like
yeah.
throwing it out there? I don't know.
Yes, but it's meant to be a physical correction. So I send videos and I say, here you go, watch, review, use it if you want to. If you don't, I don't care. But then expect your dog to continue to exhibit those behaviors because redirecting with food isn't going to work, right? Yeah. If the stress level is too high, he's not going to care about the food, period. Yeah. If you put a prong or e-collar on your dog, yeah, it'll stop the behavior. But the moment you remove the prong or e-collar, your dog is going to go back to the behavior. Yeah. Okay? So this is the most common question that I get is that when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So that means if you're walking your dog, you need it. If he's going to be off leash at the park, you need it. If guests are coming over, you need it maybe for a little bit until he calms down, right? But if he's a great dog in the house, then you don't need it. It would be off at that point. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the reason for this is, have you ever been on the expressway?
Here?
Anywhere. Yeah. Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Most people don't, right? You see a squad car, what happens? You pass the squad car, everything's clear, what happens?
Speed back up.
Speed back up. That's called opportunistic behavior. Yeah. All animals do it, okay? So if the collar is on, I like to call it a cop on the collar, the dog knows to behave better because the threat of consequence is there. Yeah. You remove the collar, the dog goes, hey, you now cannot correct me. And then they're going to exhibit the behavior.
He's so smart.
So the reason for the bonker is that for the remote collar, it's a great tool because the dog does not know where it's coming from. But that also works against it, right? Because then it's to a third party as opposed tied to you. With the bonker, yep, up on your leash, down on the butt. If done correctly, the correction comes directly from you. So now the dog knows to respect you. Does that make sense? So like I was raised old school. Yep, you're good. I was spanked growing up, and both my parents spanked me. But let's say my mom didn't spank me, and she was like, wait till your dad gets home. I would learn to play that, right? Where I go, okay, I'm gonna misbehave when mom is here because I know she won't spank me. But when dad gets home, I'm gonna behave myself, right? Opportunistic behavior. So, and you're not the first person, you're not the last person. For the human, you can't help but feel like I'm hitting my dog, right? Up on your leash, down on the butt. Yep, relax a little bit. Yep, it's fine. Up on your leash, down on the butt. Good. Yep, up on your leash, down on the butt. Good. You can't help but feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But another dog would bite. Does that make sense? Like if you had two dogs and he annoyed the other dog would bite him. And that's not abuse. It's just knock that off. Does that make sense? So the bonker is like the closest we can kind of get to that. That's not going to cause any physical harm to the dog. It's not going to break any bones. It's just a rolled up towel that creates a firm but soft surface in order for us to bridge that gap. Okay? And again, I send you the videos and I say, here you go. And if you go, I don't want to do it, I go, sure. But just deal with your dog barking.
Them here.
If needed, but if he's training on e-collar, we could just correct with the e-collar.
Yeah. Well, so we really need somewhere that he can go for daycare boarding. So, but we also need training, obviously.
Good. Relax. On the leash. Yep. Up. Yep. Good. Up. You got it. Good. We're having a shift change, so there's going to be quite a few people walking by pretty soon. Okay, just heads up there. Yeah, it's 156. Yeah, if he's being trained with remote collar, we reinforce all this stuff here. So if he was being reactive, we would correct it with the remote collar. Okay. Other questions?
What kind of thing should we do first to start training?
Oh, so you'd book with Tina. She'd handle like the scheduling and everything like that.
Yeah.
I'd put him on the Dr. Black edition because the remote system, the Circle One, I stopped using a long time ago because of the issues I was having with it.
Yeah.
Tina will send all the information. In terms of length of time that I would recommend, obviously this we want to fix. Okay. We teach heal, which is going to help fix that problem. Or reteach it in this case. Recall, how's his recall?
It's good, but I haven't tested it outside off leash because I'm just, too afraid.
Sure.
But in the house, it's good. Yeah, and if we're like out in a dog park and we're the only ones and he's off on the other side, if I call him, he comes. So that's why I think it's good. But like outside, I'm not testing it very much. It's only in like those little confined dog
Is your goal to
parks.
be outside?
What?
Is your goal to be outside?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever need him to necessarily be completely off leash on walks or whatever. Like
It's not necessarily like every command can be taught off heel or off leash, like heel. But it's really about recall. Recall has to be off leash reliable, despite the environment. Otherwise, it's pointless, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had dogs, get off leash from their owners. Like it happens, where the dog jumps and pulls the leash out their hand. Like that's where it comes into play. Even if the owner themselves doesn't see them using the off leash training. Yep. And it really, when it comes to the confidence thing, this is where the in-person training comes into play, because once you start the training and then seeing the progress, your confidence starts to go up, right? The ability to stop this stuff and prevent it entirely, and just the ability of having more control of your dog is really what gives you the confidence. And you'd be surprised, you might be reserved right now, and then once you see the training, you start to open up, and now he gets a yep. So here, pull forward, turn him around, and just put him down. Flip him around, flip him. Yep, there you go. Very good. Okay, flip him again. You see how he keeps looking? Yeah, you're trying to break that attention. There you go. Just like that. And don't, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be busy because at 2 o'clock, people clock out and they clock back in. I would, at minimum, put you at a six class program, once a week for an hour. If you did 9, we could push for more in terms of control. But I would imagine this is going to be 2 classes on heel, maybe a 3rd class on this stuff, but this will most likely go away in the first 2 classes. If it doesn't, the 3rd class will address this directly. 4th class would be recall. 5th class, I'd most likely teach stationary control, like that dog bed right there is where a dog sits. If you look up on the camera, actually, you can see there's dogs laying on dog beds right there, right? We call that duration work. Okay. So there's dogs on treadmills, dogs doing duration work, dogs that are in group on the end of the camera where you can't see. All that's happening at one time. So dogs learn to just chill and hang out, even with stuff going on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And they rotate between all these activities every hour on the hour. The 6th class, we can treat it as a variable, in the sense that if you want to review something or if you want to revisit something. If you did 9, it allows us to push what he knows to a more advanced level if you're wanting. But since he's already done the 2 to maybe 4 week board and train, I think with the 6, we're not going to cover the sit, the down, the stay type stuff unless you want to. I'm just looking at this as we want to clear up this reactivity. We need the dog to be able to walk without pulling. Recall just because every dog should know recall. Stationary work because then if he came here for daycare or boarding, it'd be an activity that he'd be able to do here with us. And then the 6th class again is just a variable. Okay?
Yeah.
So at minimum 6. If you want 9, I wouldn't recommend 12 because it's probably going to be overkill. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I have emailed Tina.
Okay.
So I think I can just respond to her and tell her. You have all those listed out on the website.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
If you go to the training, obedience training, you'll see the 3, 6, 9, and 12 week programs and the prices. And then she'll also send you the information as well. Okay. If you did 9 and let's say we go 7 in or 8 in and you're super happy and you just have this extra class, you're welcome to pocket it, or we can convert it to credit and you can always put it towards the daycare or boarding stay or whatever. Okay, we've had clients do that in the past.
So that once a week is going to be better than him coming in every day.
For like a daycare or boarding train?
Yeah.
Correct. The reason why I suggest in person here is because you need to learn how to do this.
I would be here too. Okay.
Yeah. No, it'd be once a week for an hour, and then at some point, once the weather is consistent, because we're still spotty with the rain and stuff, we train out of Oz Park, which is in Lincoln Park. It's the busiest park in Chicago. Skateboarders, rollerbladers, segways, baseball games, jazz bands, dogs, everything's there. You'll be in the thick of it, and we'll be doing all the training with that going on. So clients like it because of the exposure, but it's not necessary. Like right now, I'm still training out of here. It's not necessary to get progress. The clients just like it because they are in the environment while they're training.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Do we need to go through that 6 or 9 week process before we can do any daycare?
Nope. If you want to start him from daycare, he would do an evaluation, all that stuff, and then my staff, my admins will help you with that. You can tell Tina, and she'll direct you on who to talk to. So for dogs that have trained with us, they're
separate. Is there like 2 separate groups?
No, everything's all For dogs that have trained with us, they're not required to come to daycare in order to board. Okay, for dogs who have not trained with us, they're required to come to daycare at least once a week, continuously, in order to use our boarding services.
Okay.
It's just so that we keep everybody on the same page. In the past, they used to be a little bit more lenient, and then those dogs would come back and destroy stuff. Okay, by having them, because it's stressful. So by
Yeah.
having them come once a week, it keeps them in the structure that we don't have to worry about that
Yeah.
anymore. For the dogs that have trained with us, like we get clients that come from like the suburbs, 2 hours away and stuff. I don't expect them to travel 4 hours round trip once a week for daycare. But because we've trained our dogs, we don't have any issues.
Yeah.
'Cause everybody's on the same page. Okay. Other questions?
So,
If you've forgotten any questions to ask, you can email Tina, and then she'll answer those questions for you. If they pertain to me, she'll send me an email, and then I'll send an answer. Yep. But this isn't anything I've not seen before. He is super. I can see it in his eyes. He is super. I don't want to say neurotic. But he's up there because of the stress. Now settle
super
down.
stressed.
Yeah. This is what that commotion.
Yeah.
Like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing would be I can only take you as far as you're willing to go. If there's any lingering behaviors and stuff like that, and then let's say he needs a 90 or 100 correction in order to stop it, if you're not willing to go to that extent, we're not going to see progress there. Okay. This is rare, but I always call it out to clients because I paint things at its worst. And I've had people go, just say I can't do that, then I go, that I may not be able to. Okay. Other than that, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to let Tina know. Otherwise, it's a pleasure meeting you. And if you have any questions, let us know. Okay?
Yeah, we need to get this
Yeah.
control.
I've seen worse. So don't worry about that.